the whole thing for furniture opportunities after the war came about because there was really no good furniture around. Florence Knoll was designing it. She was a classmate of Bertolli, and they got Bertolli to do the Bertolli chairs. Errol Saarinen designed the old Saarinen chairs of 71, 72, and then he designed the pedestal furniture. I will never forget going through and addressing all the envelopes to mail out Saarinen brochures. I helped install a Knoll exhibition in the Dallas Museum of Fine Arts. It was published in Life magazine, and it was called Drumbeaters for Modern. It was kind of a record-breaking exhibition. I mean, stuff that most folks in the United States had never seen before. It was an earth-shattering opportunity for Knoll to grow, and it went extremely well. I went to Europe, and I met with a designer that I've been working with by the name of Otto Zapp. He had designed a residential closet that was so wild looking that you kids would enjoy it today, believe me. He made a panel. The panel was made by taking a round metal tube, I think aluminum, on both sides, and a box-shaped connector at the top and the bottom. And he took a piece of shiny plastic and wrapped shiny plastic around it and ran it up with a zipper to hold it on. At that point in time, our cost to manufacture a wooden workstation, Stevens workstation in wood, was $475. His cost estimate of putting that workstation with fabric, not with plastic, was $223. It's absolutely magic. You absolutely cannot imagine it working out that way. And it took off like a house fire. So we took it on as a project to produce the Zapp system. It was a panel on the side, a panel on the side, and two panels in the back with a counter across and overhead storage. Unbelievably simple. There have been tons of changes in the furniture industry. Like, you know, the best wooden chair in the world is considered this one. It was not made 100% by hand, but damn near. Each man over there that's a journeyman cabinet maker is given a box of sticks from which he can make 10 chairs. He puts them together and assembles them and gets them ready to finish. That is the other side of the coin from this mass-produced stuff.
Then we started thinking about designs, and we went to O'Neill Ford. We started talking about a house, and I took in my scrapbook, and he was a rather bombastic man, and he said, "Oh my God, all these women bring in these scrapbooks with what they want." Finally one day he said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm very busy working with Texas Instruments plant in Switzerland, and I just don't really have time, but I want you to meet my friend, Brooks Martin." So we got to planning the house, and he had a partner architect named Howard Wong, and they drew several elevations for us to look at, and one with all the trees had gable roof, and one was flat, and I can't remember what the third one was. And they said, "What do you think?" Well, I was an art major at SMU and had had my art history courses, and of course the last part of your art history course is all contemporary and contemporary architecture. I said, "That one." So we started planning the house. It's been interesting living in this neighborhood. When we built this house, a lot of people couldn't believe it. A lot of people say, "I love your house," but I don't think they would want to live in it. I think people still look at it as an oddity,
Yeah, okay.
as they did when it was first built.
Right.
Somehow, the mid-century modern really never was on the forefront of San Antonio architecture, in my opinion. We had such a historical legacy, of course, the Spanish colonial missions at the Governor's Palace, the turn of the century period, and the King William houses, Atlee Ayers period into the 20s, the golden age of the 20s. It never really took off here.
Carol Williams had a style that was not altogether dissimilar than O'Neill's. So he was actually hired to do my parents' house. We had very streamlined, simple, spare interiors.
That's what, to me, that it's all about, is the openness. Like if the Stanley's house were all in stucco walls and that sort of thing, and terrazzo floors and all, it could be the very same house and it could take on a Mies van der Rohe look about it,
Right.
Rather than a Neil Ford look, which you come to think of.
My mother tells a story that she once found O'Neill wandering around on the job site saying, wow, this is really good. Did I do this? Thinking about architecture, thinking about mid-century modern, it's just been my reality. Obviously, my interest in mid-century furniture was sparked by my parents' home, which had certain iconic pieces of mid-century furniture, from the womb chair to the diamond chair to the Barcelona chairs. The furniture collection has just gotten way ahead of the architecture. I think preserving mid-century architecture is very important. We're way behind the 8 ball in terms of thinking about that in this community. I often drove by many of the mid-century houses that were developed in the Terrell Hills area, and I was saddened to see them making really bad choices for those houses. The additions and modifications have been done so insensitively.
All my friends thought this was the coolest house ever, partially because when you see it from the street, you really don't get a sense of the size or the quality of the home. And so it's a really nice surprise to step in. Everything is thought out, so the space is really highly utilized. The use of materials, lots of really nice materials. You have a lot of natural light. The spaces are very pleasing. It's harmonious, so it's very pleasant. I think it's very important. One, because they're wonderful houses. You know, I mean, I think if you were looking for a house, one of the things is to have the opportunity to own a modern house is really, it would be such a treat, because they are so very well designed and you get so much more for the space than you do in a lot of the conventional homes. If you really design well and you put your thought into that process rather than size and trying to do it quickly, I think you have an advantage, and I think that's what the mid-century modern house embodies. You know, it's just such an interesting and unique thing. There's so few houses like this in San Antonio. My father was an architect trained at Stanford, which was the home of the Eichler movement. In San Antonio, really, it was about education. You know, design wasn't a big thing. Hemisphere was the first time we really had an introduction to really wonderful design when Alexander Gerard came. The colors, the use of color as well. Natural materials, because we really started getting more interested, I think, in Mexican art. You know, it's made by hand, so you have handprints in it. A table might have some little imperfections in it because it's made of wood, and so you really appreciate that grain. And I think we came from something that was very industrial.